Welcome to our deep dive into achondroplasia. It's a fascinating condition, and we're going to really try to get into it.
It really is a journey through time. We'll be going from ancient depictions all the way to like the most cutting edge genetic research.
Yeah, and you know what really struck me when I was prepping for this deep dive? Just how achondroplasia has been with us for centuries.
Oh, absolutely. Like you see it depicted in ancient Egyptian art, you see it in Greek mythology, you even see it in medieval folklore.
Yeah. And it's just this reminder that achondroplasia isn't something new. It's part of like the human story.
You got it. It's woven into like the fabric of human diversity.
And today, we have the tools to understand it, not just through those stories and art, but through science.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I think is so exciting about this deep dive is we're going to use all these different perspectives to learn about achondroplasia. We've got medical research papers. We've got firsthand accounts of people living with this condition.
I'm excited to dig into all that.
Yeah, me too. So let's start with like just the basics. What is achondroplasia? It's a form of dwarfism, I know that, but what's actually happening on like a cellular level?
So, achondroplasia is the most common type of dwarfism, and it's caused by a mutation in a gene called FGFR3.
FGFR3. Doesn't that sound familiar? Didn't we talk about that in another deep dive?
It's possible FGFR3 is involved in a whole bunch of different processes, but when we're talking about achondroplasia, it all comes down to bone growth.
Okay, so for people who don't have achondroplasia, what does FGFR3 do?
You can think of it like a volume knob for bone growth.
Hmm.
It helps regulate how much our bones grow, especially the long bones in our arms and legs.
So with achondroplasia, that volume knob's kind of broken.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That mutation in FGFR3 makes it overactive, so it's like the volume knob is stuck on low, slowing down bone growth, particularly in the limbs.
And that's why people with achondroplasia have shorter arms and legs.
Exactly. And it can affect other skeletal features too, like the skull and spine.
So it's not just height then, it's like the whole structure.
That's right. And it's important to remember that achondroplasia is a genetic condition, which means it's passed down from parents to children.
So if one parent has achondroplasia, what's the chance their child will inherit it?
If one parent has achondroplasia, there's a 50% chance their child will inherit the condition.
And what if both parents have achondroplasia?
Then there's a 50% chance the child will also have achondroplasia, a 25% chance that the child will have a much more severe form of skeletal dysplasia, which is called a homozygous achondroplasia, and a 25% chance the child won't inherit the condition at all.
Wow, those are some pretty significant odds.
They are, and it really highlights the importance of genetic counseling for families who are thinking about having children.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about like the genetics of achondroplasia,
Mhm.
but what about the physical characteristics? What makes it, distinctive?
So individuals with achondroplasia, they typically have shorter limbs, a larger head with a prominent forehead, and they have a unique hand structure.
Wait, hold on. A unique hand structure. Tell me more about that.
It's called the trident configuration. The fingers are shorter, and there's a wider space between the middle and ring fingers.
So it really does look like a trident.
Kind of, yeah, it's a pretty distinctive feature, and it goes to show how even like really small details of our anatomy can be shaped by our genes.
It's amazing like how genes can do that.
Right, it really is. And these physical characteristics are really just the beginning. Achondroplasia can also lead to a range of medical challenges throughout life.
Let's get into that.
Yeah.
What are some of like the biggest challenges people face?
So one of the most serious complications, especially in infancy, is foramen magnum stenosis.
Foramen magnum stenosis. That sounds intense. Break it down for me.
Okay, so the foramen magnum is the opening at the base of the skull, right? It's where the spinal cord passes through.
Okay, got it. So what does stenosis mean?
Stenosis means narrowing. So with foramen magnum stenosis, that opening, it gets too narrow and it starts compressing the spinal cord.
And that's dangerous.
It can lead to a whole bunch of problems. Breathing difficulties, sleep apnea, developmental delays. It can even lead to sudden infant death.
Wow, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. It really highlights the importance of early diagnosis and intervention.
So how is it diagnosed?
Usually through imaging tests, like
Yeah.
an MRI or a CT scan.
And the treatment? What can be done?
In some cases, especially severe cases, surgery might be necessary to actually widen that foramen magnum and relieve the pressure on the spinal cord.
It's amazing how surgery can do that.
It's truly remarkable.
Speaking of advancements, I know there's been a lot of buzz about New treatments for achondroplasia.
You're right. We've really entered a new era of targeted therapies where we're going beyond just managing symptoms and looking at ways to actually address the root cause of the condition.
I want to get to those new treatments, but first, I think it'd be helpful to take a step back and look at the history of achondroplasia care.
I think that's a great idea. Understanding the historical context can really help us appreciate how far we've come.
So where did it all begin? How did we even start to understand this condition?
Well, for centuries, our understanding of achondroplasia was really based on observation and description.
So basically recognizing those physical characteristics and trying to make sense of them.
Exactly. And then, with the invention of X-rays in the late 19th century, we were finally able to see inside the body. We could actually examine the skeletal structure in detail.
Wow, that must have been a game changer.
It was. It revolutionized our understanding of achondroplasia.
But X-rays could only tell us so much, right? They couldn't explain why bones were growing differently in the first place.
Right. And that's where the real breakthrough came, with the discovery of that FGFR3 gene mutation in the 1990s.
It was like the aha moment when we finally knew the root cause of achondroplasia.
Exactly. It was a huge turning point, shifting our focus from just observation to actually understanding the molecular mechanisms at play.
And that paves the way for the development of those targeted therapies we were talking about, right?
Absolutely. The discovery of the FGFR3 gene mutation really was a watershed moment, ushering in a new era of hope and possibility for individuals with achondroplasia.
This is where it gets really
It
interesting.
really does.
So let's talk about Vosoritide. What's the story there?
Vosoritide is a huge achievement. It's the first drug that's specifically designed to actually target the underlying mechanisms of achondroplasia.
So we're not just managing symptoms, we're actually going after the root cause.
Exactly. It's a daily injection that works by regulating bone growth. Essentially, it's trying to counteract the effects of that overactive FGFR3 gene.
I remember reading about a study in The Lancet that showed some pretty impressive results with Vosoritide.
You're talking about the study by Ravi Savarayan back in 2023, right?
Yes, it was a major milestone. What I found really impressive was the significant increase in annualized growth velocity in the children who were given Vosoritide.
It's amazing. A child who might have only grown a couple of centimeters a year is suddenly growing several centimeters a year.
It's not even just about being taller, is it? It's about achieving a better quality of life.
Absolutely. Reducing the risk of complications, helping individuals reach their full potential. And what's even more exciting is that the study also looked at the safety and efficacy of the drug in children younger than 5 years old.
Wait, are you saying we could start treatment during infancy?
That's the hope. Imagine the possibilities if we could intervene so early, even before some of those skeletal abnormalities have a chance to become more prominent.
It could really change the trajectory of their lives.
That's the kind of potential we're talking about, rewriting the whole story of achondroplasia.
Wow, that's incredible. I know there's another potential treatment on the horizon as well, an oral medication called infigratinib.
Ah, you're keeping up with the latest research, I see.
Well, I try.
Infigratinib was originally developed as a cancer treatment, but researchers realized it had the ability to inhibit that overactive FGFR3 protein. So they started looking at it for achondroplasia.
So instead of daily injections, we might be looking at like a daily pill.
Exactly. That would be huge for patients and families.
Yeah, it would. And are the results promising?
The initial results are really encouraging. A study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, it showed that infigratinib led to increased annualized height velocity and even improved height scores in children aged 3 to 11.
That's great. And this was after 18 months of treatment.
Yep, 18 months.
What's really exciting to me is the potential for infigratinib to address those issues with disproportionate growth that are so characteristic of achondroplasia.
I agree. It's not just about increasing height. It's about achieving a more balanced and proportional body structure.
So infigratinib could help with both growth and body proportions.
That's the idea. And that could have a big impact on quality of life, too. It could help reduce the risk of complications like spinal stenosis and joint problems.
It sounds like both Vosoritide and infigratinib have huge potential for the future of achondroplasia care.
They really do. But it's important to remember that research is ongoing. We need to see what the long-term effects are, you know?
Of course, safety and efficacy are paramount. But it's pretty amazing to see how breakthroughs in one field, like cancer research, can have benefits in another, like achondroplasia.
It speaks to how interconnected scientific knowledge really is.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about medications, but I know achondroplasia care involves a lot more than just pills and injections.
You're absolutely right. It's about a holistic approach where you're addressing all of the diverse challenges that individuals with achondroplasia face throughout their lives.
So what are the key components of, like, this holistic approach?
It starts with having a multidisciplinary team. So you have specialists from all different fields working together to provide the best possible care.
You give me an example.
Sure. So orthopedics is crucial. They focus on skeletal abnormalities, and they're the ones who would perform any necessary surgeries.
So orthopedics is really about addressing the structural aspects of achondroplasia.
Exactly. And then you have physical therapy, which is vital for developing motor skills, maintaining mobility, and even preventing complications.
It makes sense. Achondroplasia affects bone growth and structure, so obviously that will impact movement. Physical therapy can help people adapt and thrive.
Precisely. And, even really simple exercises can make a huge difference. There was a study in the Journal of Functional Morphology and Kinesiology, and it highlighted how specific exercises can help improve postural balance and stability in adults with achondroplasia.
So physical therapy is important throughout life.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about nutritional counseling, too.
Why is that so important for individuals with achondroplasia?
Individuals with achondroplasia have a tendency toward obesity. There are a few different reasons for that, including slower metabolism and limited mobility.
So it's about managing their weight to keep them healthy and prevent complications.
Exactly. Nutritional counseling can help individuals understand their specific needs and make healthy choices.
And then there's the emotional and social aspects of living with achondroplasia. We can't forget about those.
That's so important. Psychological support is absolutely crucial. It gives individuals a safe space to process their emotions. Okay.
I can imagine living with achondroplasia can bring about a whole range of emotions.
It definitely does. And psychological support can help address things like self-esteem, body image, and even social stigma. It's about helping individuals advocate for themselves and navigate a world that isn't always designed with their needs in mind.
So it's really about empowering them to live full and meaningful lives on their own terms.
Exactly. And fostering a sense of community and belonging.
It's amazing how many different aspects of care there are when it comes to achondroplasia.
It really is multifaceted.
We've gone from the genetic basis of the condition to the importance of this holistic approach to care.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
But before we go any deeper into all that, I think it's time to shift gears a little bit and actually hear from individuals living with this condition.
I like that idea. Let's hear some of the personal stories.
I've been reading some incredibly moving accounts. There are a couple of research papers, one from 2018 and another from 2023, both published in the Journal of Rare Diseases.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those papers. What stood out to you?
One thing that came up again and again was the challenge of feeding in infancy.
Ah, yeah, that's something we see often.
Infants with achondroplasia can have hypotonia, which is low muscle tone, and they can also have midface hypoplasia. Both of those things make it hard for them to suck and swallow.
So it's both anatomical and physiological.
Exactly. And it shows how important it is to have specialized feeding techniques and support from healthcare professionals right from the start.
It really does take a team to make sure these infants get the nutrition they need.
The papers also highlighted the importance of early intervention programs.
What kind of programs?
Programs that focus on supporting motor development. Because, infants with achondroplasia, they might reach those developmental milestones at a different pace than other infants.
Right.
These programs, they offer specialized therapies and activities to help build strength, coordination, and mobility.
It's all about giving them the tools they need to thrive.
Exactly. And it's not just about physical development. It's about fostering cognitive and social emotional growth, too.
Creating a supportive environment where they can reach their full potential.
And as they get older, the need for adaptations becomes more apparent.
Like what kinds of things are we talking about?
Everything. It could be specialized chairs, utensils designed for a shorter reach. Later on, it might be modifications for driving a car.
It's about recognizing that the world we live in wasn't designed for everybody type.
Right. And finding ways to make it work for everyone.
Exactly. And these adaptations, they're more than just practical solutions. They're symbols of independence.
They're about empowering people to live full and active lives.
I love that. And these personal accounts, they also show just how incredibly resilient people with achondroplasia and their families are.
It's inspiring to see how they navigate those challenges, how they advocate for themselves, and how they find joy in life.
They really embody the human spirit, don't they? That ability to adapt and overcome and thrive.
They really do. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of achondroplasia.
We're picking up right where we left off, exploring those lived experiences, the human side of it all.
And last time, we were talking about the importance of adaptations, creating a more accessible world, right?
Yeah, recognizing that one size doesn't fit all. And that's a beautiful thing, that diversity.
In those research papers I was mentioning, so many stories of people not just adapting, but really thriving.
People are amazing, right? So resourceful and creative when it comes to overcoming challenges.
Absolutely.
Mm.
There was one story that really stuck with me. It was about this young girl with achondroplasia who loved to bake,
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. What was her name?
Sarah. And she wanted to be independent in the kitchen, just like her siblings.
But of course, standard counters and appliances, they're just not designed for everyone.
Exactly. So her family, they came up with this amazing solution. They built her a custom kitchen island.
Oh, that's right. Lower to the ground.
Yeah, and it had adjustable shelves and pull-out drawers so she could reach everything.
It wasn't just about making it easier, it was about giving her that independence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Empowering her to pursue her passion. And then there's this other story about a young man, Alex, who wanted to get his driver's license.
Driving, such a symbol of freedom, especially when you're young.
Absolutely. But for Alex, the standard gas and brake pedals were too far away. He couldn't reach them safely.
So what did they do?
His family found a mechanic who specialized in modifications. They installed hand controls in his car.
Wow. So he could accelerate, brake, and steer using his hands.
Exactly. And those adaptations, they're not just about convenience. It's about empowering people with achondroplasia.
Giving them the tools to live their lives to the fullest. Right?
Exactly. And it's not just physical adaptations. It's about that social and emotional support, too.
You're so right. Building that positive self-image, developing resilience. Because, there can be stigma.
One of the research papers talked about support groups and the power of those.
Oh, support groups can be so important, like a lifeline.
Yeah, it's about connecting with others who understand, sharing experiences, knowing you're not alone.
And there's a really great organization, Little People of America.
LPA.
Yeah, they've been advocating for the rights of individuals with dwarfism for years.
Decades, actually.
Yeah.
They do so much educational resources, social events, mentorship programs.
And they're a strong voice, challenging stereotypes, pushing for inclusion.
It's not just about support groups, though, right? It's about creating a more inclusive society as a whole.
Absolutely. Educating ourselves, challenging our own biases, because diversity is a beautiful thing.
And, thinking back to those personal accounts, it really struck me how important it is to see individuals with achondroplasia for who they are.
Not defined by their stature.
Right. Seeing their abilities, their talents, their passions, their artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, they contribute so much.
And their stories really show that limitations often come from outside, not from within.
It's about shifting our perspective,
Right.
recognizing the potential in everyone.
Couldn't agree more.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're wrapping up our exploration of achondroplasia, but it feels like we're just getting started.
Because now we're getting into, like, the really cutting-edge research.
There's stuff that feels like sci-fi, but is actually becoming a reality.
Yeah, we've already talked about Vosoritide and infigratinib, and those drugs are amazing. They're really changing things for people with achondroplasia.
But those are just the first steps. There's so much more happening.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. What's next? What's on the horizon?
Gene therapy.
Whoa, hold on. Gene therapy, like actually editing genes.
Exactly. Remember how we talked about that FGFR3 gene mutation? That's the root cause of achondroplasia.
Yeah, it's like that volume knob for bone growth that we were talking about. It's stuck on low.
Well, with gene therapy, the idea is to actually go in and fix that broken volume knob.
Seriously, how does that even work?
It's complicated, but basically they're developing ways to deliver a healthy copy of the FGFR3 gene into the cells.
So you're replacing the faulty gene with a working one.
Exactly. Or in some cases, they're looking at ways to actually silence the overactive gene.
That's incredible. It's like microscopic surgery, but on DNA.
It is, and it's still early in the research phase, but the potential is huge.
Are you saying we could actually cure achondroplasia with gene therapy?
It's not impossible, but there are still some big challenges.
Like what?
Safety, for one. We need to make absolutely sure that it's safe and effective in the long run.
And I imagine it's pretty tricky getting the therapy to the right cells in the body.
It is. They're using viruses as vectors to deliver those genes, but it's a very delicate process.
It feels like we're on the cusp of a medical revolution.
We are, and gene therapy isn't the only exciting area. Stem cell therapy also has huge potential for achondroplasia.
Stem cells, Those are the ones that can turn into any other type of cell, right?
That's right. And they're looking at ways to use those stem cells to actually stimulate bone growth or even replace damaged cartilage in people with achondroplasia.
It's like giving the body the tools it needs to heal itself.
Exactly. And regenerative medicine takes this concept even further, aiming to actually regenerate whole tissues and organs.
Wow. So we're talking about a future where damaged bones or cartilage could actually be regenerated.
That's the goal. And it could dramatically improve quality of life for people with achondroplasia.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And with all this incredible research, we have to remember the importance of personalized medicine too.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about tailoring treatment plans to the individual's needs.
Because everyone is different.
Exactly. No two people with achondroplasia are exactly alike, so their care shouldn't be either.
And it's not just about medical care, is it? It's also about creating that supportive and inclusive environment for individuals with achondroplasia and their families.
You're so right. Addressing the social and emotional needs is crucial.
Challenging stereotypes, educating people, celebrating the unique contributions of individuals with achondroplasia.
And remember those personal stories we were talking about? Those voices are so important.
Absolutely. They're the ones living with this condition day in and day out. They're the experts on their own experiences.
We need to listen to them, learn from them. They're the ones driving progress.
It's been an incredible journey, this deep dive into achondroplasia.
I agree. From ancient history to cutting-edge science, it really shows the power of human resilience and innovation.
We've learned about the genetics, the challenges, the triumphs, and the incredible advancements that are shaping the future.
And as we wrap up, I hope our listeners feel that sense of hope and possibility. The future for achondroplasia is bright.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.